One of the most frequently asked questions on the channel is about my trellises. Where can I buy them? Do I sell them? And how do I make them? So I thought today we'd take a look and do just that. So join me with a tasty beverage of your choice close to hand while we make an optimistic trellis. And before we get underway, I'm happy to take this opportunity to send out a special thanks to who sent me a super thanks this past week, and to Manbororo, who bought me coffees. Your contributions to the channel go a long way in keeping me in Hoya and Dischidia technology, the infrastructure, and all the other stuff that goes into making these videos. So I thank you all very much for your support. And a couple more things before we get underway. If you remember in last week's video, I talked about my Hoya patella pink, and it did finally bloom. And I'm so thrilled with that. It's such a neat bloom. That's very, very pretty. I've got some close-ups I'll put over here on the side. Yeah, this one's done really, really well. There are a couple more peduncles. And as soon as this one gets done blooming, I'm going to make an optimistic trellis for this one. I don't quite know where I'm going to put it, but this has turned out to be a really interesting plant. It didn't do much for a very long time, and then I changed its location and gave it more light, and man, it likes that. So yeah, that's very, very cool. So that's Hoya patella, the pink variety. And also blooming right now is my Hoya Noona. And this is blooming for the first time. I got this just a little over a year ago. And it's putting out its first blooms in there. And I'll have some close-ups of them. If I remember, Hoya David Kamingi is one of the parents of this. I can't remember what the other one is. I'm thinking it's serpents, but that doesn't really, don't quote me on that one. I know one of the parents is David Kamingi, so yeah. I don't really notice any scent on this one, but it is afternoon, so it might get stronger in the evening. It's not splashy or flashy or anything like that, but I do love yellow blossoms, and so that one's just like working for me. So that's very cool. Happy about that. And finally is my Hoya nicholsoniae. Now I've had this one for 4 years, just about 4 years, and it has never ever bloomed for me before. And it started blooming this week for the first time. It put out another peduncle, but that one's pretty much done and gone. It started blooming when I moved it. I had it growing under a grow strip, so the light would have been like right here, which is why all the growth is on this side. And I was rearranging that shelf, the shelf it lived on, and temporarily I've moved it away from under the grow light up onto my desk, which is in the middle of the room and doesn't get any really strong light. It gets nice bright light that's in the room, and as soon as I did that, it started blooming. So just a kind of an FYI, if your Hoya nicholsoniae is arguing with you or being uncooperative, try less light. The leaves are really pretty. I like the veining on them. I have a feeling this is going to darken up a little bit the longer it stays out of that bright light, but yeah, I love yellow blossoms, and so that's working for me. And I should have some, at some point should have shown you some close-ups of the blooms, but, and I don't smell anything on them. But again, it's afternoon, so that might get stronger in the evening. I'll have to check up on that, keep you posted. But yeah, I'm really happy about those three. Okay, so to make your optimistic trellis, you're going to need, what we know as rabbit fencing, chicken wire, garden fencing, something like this. In the US, it's typically sold in widths of 24 inches, which is 60.9 centimeters, or 36 inches, which is 91.4 centimeters. And this particular type has grids that are 2 inches wide, which is 5 centimeters, by 3 inches tall, which is 7.6 centimeters. It typically comes coated. This is coated in black, sometimes coated in green, and I've also seen it in plain, so whichever works best for you. I picked the black because it goes with the grow shelves I have, so yeah. You're going to need wire cutters and a pair of what I know as needle nose pliers. And sometimes these needle nose pliers have a section in here that will cut wire. If your needle nose pliers will cut the wire on the fencing, then you won't need the wire cutters. You will need the pot that you're going to put the plant and the trellis in, and I recommend something round. This is a cardboard tube that is about the same size as the inside of the plant pot, and it's fairly sturdy. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be a 1-liter bottle. It could be anything roundish. And that's all you need to get started. Now, the first thing you should do is lift out the inner pot and measure the circumference of that pot. In this case, it just happens to be a little over 12 inches. And you divide that by 2, which is the width of the cell, and that will tell you how many cells wide that you need to cut. The way I set this up, I leave one end always with fingers, the open fingers of the fencing. And so I take the 12 inches, I divide it by 2, and that gives me 6. So I need to cut a column of this that's 6 inches. Boy, that's 6 inches, that's 6 units. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I count one more time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And because I have the fingers on the other end, I'm going to cut this section, leaving fingers on what remains. So I just go down and cut through the wire as close to that vertical piece as I possibly can. Okay. And now we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you have to pick one end as the bottom and one end as the top. I'm going to pick this as the bottom, so I'm going to cut off this last wire. And the reason for that is so that it will slide down into my substrate more easily. So there, now I have fingers down this side. Get my white paper. And along the bottom. And the last thing I'm going to do is to take off this last little wire here. And what that does is leaves a hole for the plant to come through. Now, having accomplished all that, I'm going to go down each one of these fingers with my needle nose pliers, and I'm going to grip so the wire just comes to the, so if I go in this side with the wire, it will just come flush with the other edge. And I've done this enough that I have a mark on here that tells me where on the pliers I put it in, and I'll show close-ups and stuff. But I put it in, and I simply give it a 180-degree turn. And what that does is to create a little hook. And you're going to do that all the way down. So just Grab it and turn. And remember, with all this, you're just making a plant trellis. It's not brain surgery. It's not rocket science. And the plants are never going to complain that it's not perfect. They will not even notice. Okay? So don't get ate up about it. Your first one is not going to be great, but they will get progressively better. So I've gone down the entire length here, and I've made little hooks. Now, I take my round tube, and I'm going to lay it down inside, and I'll put in close-ups of this section, and I'm going to roll the fencing around this. Not absolutely tight. I'm just going to use this to give it the roundish curve. And I'll intersperse other footage here so you get the gist of what I'm doing. And sometimes it takes, you go down one side and then you go up the other. But what you're going to end up with is something more like that. You've just got the round started. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay? Then what I usually do is go to the top one and hook it underneath and crimp the top one. Tidy it up as you need to. And then work your way down, just hooking it. All the way down until you get to the last one. And then I crimp the last one and then work my way back up, crimping up as I go. Go in from the bottom or the top, whichever's going to work best. Just close those down. And so you've got a closed cage. Take a look down the end, and if you feel like you need to round it up a little bit. And I usually open up the bottom just a tad. And that's all there is to it. It's nothing fancy, it's nothing difficult. You can do this. And if you're going to have a lot of Hoyas, and you like this style of trellising, then this is something you should learn to do because it just saves you a lot of money. And if you have a larger pot, a pot that's larger in size, you can make these wider, you can make these narrower. You can do anything you need to. It's quite adaptable. So I take the pot, tuck the points inside the inner pot all the way around, and then just give it a good push right down into the pond. So all those fingers along the bottom are now buried in the pond, and there's a space here for the vines to come out. I've seen Miro suggest planting the pot closer to where you're going to put the opening. That's usually a really good idea. I always forget to do that, but yeah. So now I have a trellis that from the top of the pot to the top is just about 21 inches, which is about 53.5 centimeters. So yeah, that's all there is to making one of my optimistic trellises. And this is not an original design. This is based upon watching 3 or 4 other people do it and what I typically do. So yeah, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And now it's time for questions from the comments. And the first one comes from Fred Leda. And his question is, in your opinion, what are the factors that make a Hoya rare? And this is sort of a pet peeve, but I hate using the word rare with Hoyas. It doesn't mean anything anymore. If you're looking online, every Hoya you're going to see is listed as rare. You're going to see super rare Hoya carnosa, plain green. They're all listed as rare, and it doesn't mean anything. If people are selling them on Etsy, if people are selling them on eBay, they're not rare. They're not rare. They might be slightly uncommon, but they're not rare. So I don't use that term. And when I see it in a listing online, I immediately discount that listing. If someone can't be honest with me, if they're trying to convince me that the plant they have is rare, if if some seller in East Chippewa, Rhode Island has 7 of them, they're not rare. If I go online and I see 12 listings for the same plant, they're not rare. So a rare plant is one we haven't discovered yet, one that we have never heard of. And I don't mean just individually, but that the international community has not heard of. That's a rare Hoya. But whenever you see that adjective used in any listing or applied to any plant, just don't pay any attention to it. It's just foolishness. And it's specifically designed to try and hook newbies into buying something that they don't know much about. Really, the term rare doesn't mean anything, particularly if you see it in a sales listing. So yeah, put no faith in that. Nothing whatsoever. It's just foolishness. And don't fall for it. I've seen some listings for stuff which is rare new Hoya, and it was just a super sun-stressed plant. And once you get that plant, you look at it and say, oh, those red leaves, that's great. That's a new species. No, it's not. They just blasted it with light for a couple weeks. Once it spends 3 days in a box and arrives in your home, all that sun stressing is going to fade, and you're just going to have a plain old plant. So don't fall for the term rare. Don't use the term rare. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Now, the next question is from D. Dodson, 2452. And D asks, I have a question. Is pond just lightweight rocks? I tried to look it up, and there seem to be several versions of what pond actually is. So my understanding is that pond was used by the Lechuza company for their lightweight inorganic mix. But the term pond has since become something like Kleenex. It's just become a generic term for an inorganic substrate, growing medium. Typically, pond is made of lava rock, pumice, and zeolite. And everybody has their own proprietary recipes and sizes of granules and everything else. So there is no one recipe for pond. I mean, a lot of my plants, I use plain pumice, which I could just as easily call pond, but I like to try and tell you what I'm doing. So it's, if it's plain pumice, I say plain pumice. You can buy those 3 ingredients, the lava rock, the pumice, and zeolite in bulk and mix up your own. I found a cheap generic version online that I buy in like 18-pound bags. And, it's not necessarily fancy. The Lechuza brand has slow-release fertilizer mixed in with it. And since I'm using a passive hydroponic growing system, I use a nutrient solution, and I don't need any extra fertilizer, slow-release fertilizer, or fertilizer of any kind mixed in with the growing medium. A lot of people, when they switch plants to pond, have a really great initial reaction on the part of the plants because they're getting regular watering and they're getting a slow-release fertilizer. But the fertilizer only lasts about 6 months, and then you have to start fertilizing because there's no nutrients in pond. It's just rock. Now, the nice thing about those rocks, the lava rock and the pumice, is that while they don't necessarily absorb water, they hold water. So it's like an English muffin with all the nooks and crannies to hold the melted butter. Lava rock and zeolite have lava rock and pumice have lots of little nooks and crannies that will trap and hold water or moisture over a while. Zeolite does have some wicking qualities, which is part of the reason it's included with this. So all in all, the substrate works to hold a certain amount of moisture, wick a certain amount of moisture up from the reservoir, and make it available to the plants while still providing a super airy mixture for the roots. So the roots get lots of oxygen around them. So yeah, you can find generic pon online. You can buy the brand name pon. You can use your own recipe and mix it up yourself in bulk. You can switch to something like pure pumice. All of that stuff works in a very similar way. And there, to the best of my knowledge, there is no one singular proportion or recipe for that. But I've had a lot of success, a lot of luck growing in pon, and I recommend it for Hoyas. Now, the next couple questions are related, so I include them. I was talking about putting some plants on trellises last week, and I said to do it counterclockwise, and that's what Snowy SNOYWNTR2, Snowy Winter 2, and Barb F2457 asked. Snowy Winter asked why counterclockwise, and I'll get to that. And Barb F asked, do plants climb twisted differently in the northern versus southern hemisphere, like swirling water going down a drain? So why counterclockwise? Because when Hoyas grow, they vine in a counterclockwise manner. So I'm sort of treating the trellis as if it were a trunk or a branch and following the way that the plant would normally vine around that. In terms of northern and southern hemisphere, no, the vining pattern of the plant, of the Hoya, is a genetic thing. It's not based upon the northern or southern hemisphere. So Hoyas always, the vining Hoyas will always wrap in a counterclockwise manner. So that's why I start them off that way. Why fight it? They're going to tend to do that anyway. So I just work in that way. And that's been doing okay. So yeah, thanks for those questions. And the question for the comments is a two-parter, because it's me, and of course there's two parts. Part one is, what's your success? And part two is, what's your struggle? My success right now is my Monstera deliciosa compacta and my Monstera deliciosa Thai constellation. And you'll see an update on them in the near future, so I'm not going to show them now. But I have never been able to successfully grow Monstera. Well, Monstera, yeah, Adansonii, we get along great. But Monstera deliciosa, I have never, ever had good luck with it. And both of those plants are putting out new leaves. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. I just recently picked up a plain old green Monstera deliciosa, and I have it in a self-watering pot and in pumice, and nothing has died. Nothing has turned crispy and fallen off. They haven't started pushing out a new leaf yet, but it's only been a couple of weeks, so it's still getting settled in. But so my success is Monstera. I'm really thrilled about that. You'll see updates as it goes along. My struggle is right back over here. That's an unidentified orchid that I was given by a friend because it never bloomed for them, and it took years for it to bloom for me. But I finally figured out what it needed. And I've had some pictures of it online. It's done very, very well. And I forgot about it. I moved all the plants out here at the summer, beginning of the warm temperatures, and I left it in the den. And I haven't been in the den very much in the last couple of weeks because it's just too nice out here. Why would I be inside when I could be out here? And it got a little dry. So I brought it out here, I cleaned it up, I gave it a good drink, and we're going to see if we can start nurturing it back. It has started to put out some new shoots. So in a couple of days, I'm going to go in, clean it all out, check the roots and see how they're doing, clip back anything that's dead and dying, and get it resettled in some fresh substrate. And yeah, keep our fingers crossed on that one. So in the comments below, tell me, what's been your success and what's been your struggle? And yeah, we'll see how everybody's doing with stuff. And as always, I'd like to thank you for choosing to spend a little bit of your time with me this week's end. Please remember to click the thumbs up like button below, the subscribe button, the notification bell. And if you're on a mobile device when you're all done watching and commenting, please click on that hype button. All of those things help convince YouTube that they should recommend my channel to people who haven't seen it yet, and it's your way of helping the channel grow. A lot of the products that you've seen me use are available through my Amazon storefront. There's a link in the description below, or you can scan this QR code with the camera app on your phone to visit the storefront. I receive a small commission on the sales from the storefront, but it doesn't increase your price whatsoever, and it's another way of supporting the channel by buying things through my storefront that you might purchase anyway. If you're in the market for grow lights, I have a relationship with the Sansi Corporation. There's a link in the description below, or you can scan this QR code with the camera app on your phone to visit the site. If you use this discount code at checkout, you'll receive 30% off the costs and the prices you find there. I've been really happy with my Sansi grow lights, and I receive a commission on those sales, so it's another way that you can help support the channel. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can scan this QR code or follow the link in the description to visit my Buy Me a Coffee page. Or if you'd like to work through YouTube, you can click on the thanks button down here, and YouTube handles everything for the thanks button. As usual, I'm going to put a couple more links to videos you might enjoy over here on the side, and please enjoy the rest of your week's end.